So then, we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant, from the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of Israel, from the prophets of Yahweh, from the prophets of old, giving us then the understanding of the time of the end. Truly, the holy city is the very site and must come up very quickly, because salvation depends upon the holy city. So then, the question is, if you were then born during the time of the seat, are you truly saved? The answer is no. You were never saved. People before you, when you believed before your grandfather or grandmother, they died, they did not go to heaven. That's the truth of it. It must be taught. They were born during the time of the deceit, and they learned deceit, and they died in deceit. So if you are a person with sentiments regarding what you have learned of salvation and went to church and did your dues and so on and so forth, it means nothing. Because those were concocted theories based from wrong interpretations and translations of the word, and you were taught wrong. So then your grandfather and grandmother, they did not go to heaven. They went straight down. The name is Sheol. It's a chamber of torment until the closing of the age. Salvation plan means what Yahweh had provided for His people when they were rescued from Egypt. Then they were taken over through the land, through the sea, with mighty signs and wonders. Then they were parked near the mountain, Mount Sinai, where Moses then went up to the mountain and received the holy laws, and then he started the first service. Thus, the plan of salvation. So many people in early generations, when they thought they were saved, they were not saved. In fact, they have then set up themselves to go organizingly down to Sheol, or the inferno, or then the chamber of torment. So then, as we return to the truth, we begin to understand not only where we stand, but what does it mean truly, the salvation plan. The Messiah was very specific. He told the saved Hebrews of his time, those that believed in the Messiah, go around the world, therefore, then make holy cities, prepare holy cities, because they were endowed with responsibility of leading the Gentiles to salvation. And ever since the cities were destroyed, no more salvation. Salvation had halted. Because you have to have the guidance of the saved, set apart in the Messiah in order to give you then the constant updates of heaven for the benefit of the Gentiles. These were the duties of the holy cities. People are always in search for new information. This means nourishment from heaven in terms of receiving what truly means of remaining saved. Not only stealing from people by hurting other people. This was then taught during the time of the seat. So if you are then a person that came from a nice family, nice grandparents, nice background, means nothing when you compare with salvation. They were not saved. They were simply nice people. And only because you are a nice person, nice family, nice actions, does not mean you are saved. Because you are not saved. That's why the Messiah never made a comparison. Either if you are a murderer, saved in the Messiah, you are then a person before the Messiah. Or if you are a nice person before the Messiah, then you are a person before the Messiah. And the reference factor is salvation was granted to the Gentiles. As long as they understand where salvation is at and where the Messiah is found at. People, they were always taught, oh, the Mashiach, you have then to pray. No, you don't have to pray. You don't pray. The distinctive portion of being a saved person in the Mashiach is the factor of not praying. You have to be led to pray. If you begin to compare then what goes on in the entire situation with the pagan cultures, they are always praying. And the Mashiach taught his people not to pray. His special sense was emphasis then given to Gentiles never pray. Because they don't know what to pray for. They are not sensed. They don't understand the many names of Yahweh. They don't understand the times and the seasons. They don't understand the factor of when the season of time comes, or the Holy Mikra. There is a special information coming from heaven related to nations, related to people, and then you begin to act in line with the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, and also with your everyday living. But then you receive updates constantly to maintain you on the path of Yahweh. Is that starting making sense? That's why then Yahweh has decided to give his people then the functions. So if you think then you can resume life, and then the city then far away from you, and you can play around and manipulate your own kingdom, you're absolutely mistaken. Because as you take a plunge into death, you go straight down to the inferno. You have to push for the holy city. And then you must understand the Torah. You must learn how to love the Torah, how to read the Torah, how to understand the layers of understanding of the prophetic. And then sharing it with the other people and never praying. We are to be dependent upon the saved, set apart. And when they are then in their cities, they help then the Gentiles how to pray. That's how is the set up situation is located at the moment. So distinction from then the religious pagans and the set apart is the set apart Gentiles, they never pray. The Messiah made a reference of prayer because they were going to be facing a transitional time. Shaul the Shaliach was praying with them because they did not have the city. Gentiles were given guidelines and they were not to be praying. Not even the set apart, prior of receiving Ruach HaKodesh, they were to pray. If you read then Shaliach Shaul and Timothy, you find he himself was then delegating responsibility for some of the set apart, endowed with anointing from heaven through Ruach HaKodesh, to go over there and then pray with them. Did he not say, oh, we should be there with you, and then imparting? What does it mean? He was then explaining, praying with them, explaining the oracles, explaining the Torah, explaining the times and seasons, and then sometimes Ruach HaKodesh would come upon them after the prayer of Shaul. Sometimes not. Sometimes Ruach HaKodesh would come at once, as he did it when Shaliach Shaul spent time with the Bereans. As he was explaining then the mysteries of the Torah, then Ruach HaKodesh came upon the people. And they began to function. So then if you think you can manipulate your way through only because you know where the city location is at, and then you try to play your own junkies, you can truly forget it. Because if you die today or the next day, you're going straight down to Sheol. There is a transformation. What did Shaliach Shaul say? Renewing of the mind with the scripture. What scripture? The Torah. And always pointing to the city. If you do not have this desire of then having the city near you, it's because you are not saved. You don't understand the plan of salvation. The plan of salvation always involved the cities. The only reason why you have people praying outside of the holy cities is because of then the transitional time from the first service to the second service. From the moment the people enter the first city during the time of Yohanan, then you find then the people no longer praying by themselves. They are always preparing themselves in the holy cities, and then when the time would come, they would go out, and then a person with a function of prophecy would understand prophecy, and the word of knowledge, and wisdom, and then miracles, and healings, and interpretation of tongues, and discerning of spirits. Thus, then the plan of salvation maintains you as long as you have the desire of maintaining yourself saved. Don't think you only receive the Messiah once and then you are saved forever. That's a lie. You have to maintain yourself loyal. That's why the Messiah said, you are such as a branch grafted in a vine. But if then the branch does not produce fruit, he then removes it for the end, for burning. He was explaining then the soul of the person goes to Sheol and then is burned when the earth then is burned with a shot of sulfur. It was an analogy. He was using it then Gentiles or then set apart, coming and not producing fruit. When you hear the Torah, the prophets, the writings, and then the description of the prophecies, the explanations of those layers, this is producing fruit. So what you hear in this video is fruit. You receive the fruit of the Spirit, and then you understand the plan of salvation. If you try to talk with a pastor or a scoundrel, scoundrelizing the scripture, you're not going to receive any fruit. You receive crap. Because they were born during the time of the deceit. They can't produce fruit. How can they produce fruit outside of the holy city? What is then the vine? The vine is the city. Started during the time of the Garden of Eden. Was it not a plant over there? Producing fruit? Was it not then the plant of life? And then the city started with the city. The Garden of Eden was a city. Did he not have a gate? Yes, he had a gate over there. Meant the city was secluded. The first city was the garden. Then they went to sin and they had to be going out of the garden. Thus became then afterwards the plan of salvation, because they were in evil place. Then later came the rescue. Then they started in the first city. And then the Messiah came. Then they would go around the world forming holy cities. The whole plan of salvation. And then people came out of the 1,000 years of deceit and they think they can manipulate. They are absolutely mistaken. If they take a plunge to death, they're going straight down to Sheol, so in torment. They must force themselves to read the Torah, read the prophets. The name is absolutely true. Forcing. Him or herself, they have to force themselves to read, because it does not come natural. You have to fight yourself through to understand the prophets, understanding the Torah, and then relating yourself with it, and always pointing to the point of salvation where the city is located at. The Messiah made an analogy of himself in a Holy of Holies as if he was then the vine. You, Gentiles, then are outside of the holy city as the branches. In his spirit you are linked with the Holy of Holies. However, if you do not produce fruit, then you are on your own. You turn around, you mix with the world. You are a tiny serpent doing the serpent's work in the world. Always trying to manipulate the understanding of the true salvation depending upon the cities. Because truly you do not want to be dependent upon the cities, you want to do your own thing. shows you are not being then drawn by the Messiah, because the Messiah is only found in a Holy of Holies. His Father was found in a Holy of Holies. The Messiah received the power in heaven and also in the earth, authority of both places in his hands, and he is found in a Holy of Holies. If you take a plunge into death, straight down to Sheol, torment until the closing of the age. So was then your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, generations before you. They did not go to heaven. They went straight down and they are in torment. So only because nice. They want to be nice people. All because they were so nice. God would evaluate they were nice. No, He does not evaluate this way. In fact, He does not even listen to you. Because your explanation of what salvation is absolutely contrary of His salvation plan. The salvation plan is in a certain way only. You find Yahweh in charge of heaven and the earth as the creator. You find the Son leading then heaven and the earth salvation plan. Then when the Messiah is then in a Holy of Holies, Gentiles, they are linked in the Spirit by the nearest city of them. They are linked in the Spirit. They don't pray. They are led to pray. They must be shepherded. Their petitions then, when they set apart, they are praying with them, goes to the Holy of Holies. From the Holy of Holies goes up to heaven. So when you hear then the angel coming down and taking on the prayers and then going up, from there goes to the Son. And then the Son makes the plead before the power. That's the way it works. You can't go straight to heaven only because you think you are a temple of the Holy Spirit. That's crap. That's from the time of the seat. You have to have the tabernacle and the holy city so then you can show up over there and receive directives. But then they want to manipulate, because they know where the city is at. Of course, the serpent in them is already doing the work. The problem is, if you take a plunge into death, you're going straight down to torment. That's the only problem. So you are playing a game with your own life. And truly then ask your demon, never let you down, never let you die. Because if you do, you're going to join them in the second death. Salvation plan comes of the understanding of the cities and going over there as often to maintain you on a path of Yahweh. So it's not yourself then trying to be a broken up branch from the Holy Tabernacles and trying to go on and trying to produce fruit on your own. What was the explanation of Yohanan when he saw then some of those people of the law coming to him for instructions, and then later came those disciples of those people of the law and said to Yohanan, all those people that you were speaking with, they are baptized on their own. And Yohanan kind of laughed. They have to have a mandate from heaven in order to produce fruit. They are trying to do on their own. What do you think these many junky places for 1,000 years teaching the people they are doing on their own? Means nothing. And then, is that a problem for people then to continue on with their churches? Of course it's a problem. Because they are observing the wrong day of worship. Wrong day of observance. It is the day of the beast. Try to understand. You can't mix your Messiah with somebody else's Messiah. If you want to know salvation, you have to understand the Shabbat. And then the holy city is a Shabbat city. And then you try to manipulate, then you go to the first day observance, but then you want to name yourself saved. You are not saved. Because you have to make decisions. You have to abandon the paganism and then going after the Messiah. The Messiah has a specific plan of salvation, and it is related with the cities. Go therefore around the world as you learned. What you have learned. The Messiah was not explaining only what he taught them, he was including what you have learned from Moses. Because the Messiah was on the top, then Moses and Abraham and so on and so forth. The Messiah was the top. So what you have learned from the viewpoint of the Messiah, including what Yahweh had shown Moses, these do and observe, go therefore around the world, form holy cities, and then teach the Gentiles. Because he would never leave, neither forsake them, because he would be in a holy of holies. The place of the Holy of Holies is eternal. Now, what they have believed is a Messiah outside of the Holy of Holies, absolutely nonsense. Dealing with the demonic powers. And then they ask around, what is your gifting? What gifting? And then they tried salvation, and they speak of a Messiah that's from the Greco country, the demon. There is no salvation. The holy city obeys the Torah. If you don't know, the Torah then obeys the seventh day, the Shabbat. If you are a person who would like to go to the first day, are you truly saved? No, you are not saved. You are participating in paganism. First day observance is paganism. It's pagan. Either you serve the Messiah or you serve the world. You have to make a decision. You can't do both. But should you choose then to have the wrong religion, pagan religion, and you are in sin and you die, you go straight down to the Sheol. Because if you are truly from the Messiah, you always push for the holy city. As often as you show up at the city, the often you receive regular updates. Because not only nations they would direct. Nations, kingdoms, princes, and peoples. So if you like to understand the holy city and you then like to enjoy your junky paganism, you have to think twice. Have to be part of a messianic gathering that does not pray. They do not pray because they are not exercised in the functions. Only participate in the gathering to teach and then to share with the people, sharing the Torah, the oracles, and explaining what those mean. But then if you go there and you resume your own pagan junkies, defeats the purpose. You can't do both. As far as our country, you understand, we are mostly related with the first day observance. It is the beast's work because of the last 1,000 years. That's why the most popular day of observance is the first day, because it was the day of the deceit. But they themselves must understand where this situation comes from, and they have to make the choice of either understanding the city and then being with the Messiah, or return to their pagan junkies. There is a lot going on in our country. have a huge task if yet of privatization, and then creation of new jobs, and then extraction of our natural resources, reorganizing some of the most important power plants. More than likely they have to be turned over to the analog system, because there are more scoundrels playing around with computerized systems and they can shut down power plants. So there are a lot of many decisions that must be made. But privatization is the utmost importance. Our nation is not going any further. Without a systematic plan of privatization, our nation is not going to come out of this muck and mire of economical crisis. We are simply not going out of it. We are not going to continue with these lies and junks and religion and this crap of trying to make up the people's mind and mesmerizing them with lies. People are no longer stupid. People understand, if we do not privatize in a systematic plan, our country is not going to recuperate. Drastic measures. Most of the federal agencies must be privatized, turned over to the private sector, give each of them a protocol on how to run it, and get rid of them. It's the only solution. We are not going to produce enough jobs to maintain this monster of a government. It became a monstrosity beyond control. And the printing machine is working 24/7. But it's coming a point where then the market is going to crash as a result of it. And then inflation takes over. Without privatization, our economy is ruined. Another problem is, in quote, the new Chinese leader. He doesn't want taking the risks. He wants solid understanding in each action he takes. You know what this means? We were thinking of having more patrols from the Chinese. Do you think they're going to expend more money? No. They may not spend more money of their own doing stupid patrols. They want trade. Patrols are only expenses. So we've got another problem in our hands. Not only convincing that they should do more patrols, but they making deals with them and trying to retrieve at the same time to reserve. But we are not doing both, neither. And then we try to be lunatics and then having hopes of then coming out of crisis. We are not going to come out of crisis. The government already is trying to kind of come up with some sort of a resolution, and trying to go through some of these problems, but not privatizing. There is no more conversations. Either the company take over those junky agencies and turn them to profit, and we privatize and get rid of them, or our country is going to sink. In quote, we're going to be ruined. And since the Chinese are becoming much more aware of the end of times, they're going to wait until we break. Then the certainty of their system then being implemented. Do a bit of a study of history in countries in crisis. The first topic for them is obviously privatize. Get rid of the agencies. Computers these days, when they are properly used, they can do the work of a couple hundred people. But you have to have a sound person over there doing the work and actually doing the work. The most majority of federal government's people working, they are lazy. I saw myself with my own eyes. I used to be a federal worker. Lazy beyond measure. They're abusers. Sometimes 5, 6, 10 supervisors working at the same time, working overtime. Sometimes 4 managers working at the same time, 100,000+ a year. Each of them working overtime, and they make up themselves reasons to make up more overtime in special operations during the time when then the airport is not very busy. In each of those earning overtime, besides benefits. It is absolutely abusive beyond measure. If our country does not take seriously and regard these expenses and these abuses as criminal, the directors of these places, when they do not have responsibility, are criminals. They should be punished and put into prison. They used to work on an airport over there in the Pacific, Maui Island. Boy, it was a party of the government over there. Buy new machines, important. But then, the place where the workers of security used to check bags for bombs, at first they had regular chairs, as you would expect regular workers doing regular work on the computer with regular chairs, with pads. But then, afterwards, came CEO's chairs. Woo, boy, what improvement! A nice leather type of chair with a high back and swivel, the whole 9 yards, for regular federal workers. New furniture, the whole section of it. Now let me ask you this, for a regular worker checking bags, does that require CEO chairs? Then in a day sometimes of 8,000 people, where maximum would reach 10, 12, sometimes more, depending on the season of the year, then they had special operations. More people walking around doing nothing. And sometimes they would work on a 60th day and a 7th day, sometimes Sunday, earning twice of the pay. 5, 6, 7 hours of overtime. Absolutely no control. Sometimes 4 managers working at the same time. 120,000 a year. From 120,000. Then another 5, 6, sometimes more supervisors working at the same time. Working overtime, special operations. In an airport, an epoxy island over there, lost in the midst of the Pacific. And then amazingly, the previous director went out, they hired a person from the Air Force. 30 years working at the Air Force, no experience whatsoever with security, no experience. Then they hired a guy with no experience in security. Already retired with a nice huge pay, nice benefits, and then it gives a huge another position. Wow, what a paradise! Working on the island, working in the Pacific, already retired from the military with the huge benefits and another job of 150,000 a year. You know what he does? Walks around, shakes hands. Has a tiny file under his arm and walking around shaking hands. goes from island to island, visiting airports and blah blah blah, talking around and having lunches, and government is paying for it. Paying for the air ticket, paying then for lunches, paying then for morning breakfasts, and they put down as expenses as part of the trade. What trade do they do if they are not profit? So sometimes there were more people wearing blue in the airport than you would find than sometimes travelers. People walking around doing nothing. Not only this, sometimes they would have some ridiculous orders given after a person goes through security. Then you buy a pop at the restaurant and they come around trying to test your pop, your can of soda, and more people being hired. Let me ask you this. In a times of crisis, is this proper or it's a criminal? How do you consider the situation? Because it's not abusive anymore. We have reached the point of we are spending more. The 50% mark where we should have these exchanges of understanding and then reducing our costs, we are above the 50%. So it's no longer abuse. Abuse goes up to 50 if a person has a normal mind of understanding economics. We are after the 50% means then the name changes from abuse to criminal. Because 50% of what we spent must be covered versus the 50 that we earn. So then makes the whole. We are spending more than we are earning. Already became criminal a long time ago. But then, where are the security inspectors? They don't care. And do you think we are going to come out of this crisis without privatization? Never. There are more scoundrels in our agencies than you can ever imagine. Licensed pirates. They don't like the title, but it's precisely what it is. They are criminals. And this is a tiny island over there, lost in the Pacific. Can you imagine huge, large airports? It is an abusive that you can ever imagine in your life. We are speaking of people abusing the time, abusing lunches, abusing then hotels, traveling around, wasting then with money regarding plane tickets, where it can be easily done via tele reunions. You be in a reunion in a special place over there, don't have to go over there in another city. They spend time buying tickets, nice lunches, government's vehicle, government's paying for gasoline, cars, they get a credit card from the government. And watch then the detection rate. A couple of years ago was from 5 to 8 fake bags of bombs. 8 of them were going through. In fact, if you then understand from 1 to 10, from 10 bags, maximum of 8 goes through. From 5 to 8 maximum. Now let me ask you this. Imagine then, for instance, the agriculture department. There was there in the island also an X-ray machine. When the people, they were bound to the mainland, leaving the island, you have to put through your bags, make sure you're not stealing coral from the island, you're not stealing plants. When you buy a plant, it has to have a tag on it, because it was cultivated. But then, if you go over there at the forest and you steal a plant without a tag, then it's confiscated. You know what they used to do? The worker over there, he didn't give a crap. He would turn on the X-ray machine and would let the bags go through. Wasn't even watching the bags. They would make their own people over there talking around and the belt going by itself. Saw with my own eyes. Then some nights at the back, we would open up a bag to do a search, find an item that was suspicious. There it was, coral. Live coral in a bag. And those people over there earning around nearly 20 an hour. Agriculture department. Now you combine the abuses of this kind and you eliminate them. In a short couple of years, our country is in a very nice position. And this was not made it up. I saw with my own eyes. I used to be a federal worker. They don't give the tiniest crap. They don't give a rip. Nobody is inspecting them. Now, you imagine then a director that never was involved in security. Came from the Air Force. Retired, nice pay, nice benefits, already has a house. Not concerned with money, has a lot, and receives another job. Do you think he's going to be concerned with a few hours of overtime? His job is to come up with as many security operations he can ever come up with, even in a day where the airport is nearly dead. So then you find a lot of people working and not even enough travelers to do the tests with. And then you find sometimes special bomb technicians coming from other states, spending time with other people over there and doing absolutely nothing. They only walk around. If you think they spend time and they stop the belt to get a bag out of it and inspect and teach, then the people, they don't do this. It's the whole situation theoretical. These stupid, damn lazy agencies must be gone very fast. You can get rid of them. Those are only expenses. And they don't have any restriction. How would you buy a CEO's chair for a regular security worker? Lacks a bit of understanding what it means. We can't expend this much. Oh, because if the agency doesn't spend this money, then it gets lost. No, it does not get lost. It returns to the strong box of the government for other usages. Let me ask you this. Who would be then a person with a strong pulse to take on these scoundrels? They don't even have inspectors over the overtime over there. In a very easy day, 8,000 people coming through a tiny poxy island airport over there. Then you find sometimes 4 managers are working at the same time, 110,000 a pop a year. Then you find sometimes 7, 8 supervisors around, walking around. Then they have a special place over there where they have computers. You know what they do? They go over there to watch videos. Do you think they are concerned with overtime? No, they are up there watching videos. is extremely abusive. It is absolutely criminal. But our government then is a soft mouth. They don't want to take on the responsibility of privatizing those stupid agencies. There is not a courageous person over there to take on the task. In 40 years, our economy is ruined. Because we can't maintain this monstrosity of government. Except for a very few agencies. For instance, FEMA is extremely important. A person can say whatsoever bad of other agencies, but these agencies must remain because they are related with disasters. And then secret services. The rest of it, gone. Privatize. Somehow, some way, find buyers, get rid of them. Meaning, absolutely erasing the names of those people from the database of the government. Cleaning it up. Yeah, because benefits, no. Transfer these to the private company and let them deal with it. The main point is get rid of it, remove the names of these people from the database from the federal government. Because it's beyond abusive. Regular people, civilians, never worked for the government before. They would be absolutely jumping up and down because of anger of what they do. They don't care. If this was simply invented by not working with them, but worked with them, was going to be nearly my 30th year. And boy, they are criminals of the worst kind ever. They do not measure overtime. They do not measure the number of people coming to work. They promote people of any kind, of any position, and they make huge bestial stories and reasons to have more people hired with more higher positions, more pay, and then not enough travelers. Now, where is the person to make inspections? And asking, why have you hired so many people if your airport is not having enough travelers to justify your decision? There is not a person over there doing this. Then you find 6, 7, 8 supervisors. Then you find first, second, third, fourth manager working at the same time. Then you find a special operation, people coming through from other states because they are bomb searchers, bomb experts. And not only they are working on Sunday, double pay. And then they have to stay in a hotel. They have to be paid their meals. Transportation. And then our people paying for it. And nobody is then giving a limit. And the director position was going around shaking hands. It was absolutely comical when it was used to come around. With a tiny folded under the arm, smiling around and shaking hands. Get up in the morning, vehicle of the government or his own, going to work, nice, air conditioned. His nice cubicle over there, nice and spacious. Breakfast of donuts, nice breakfast in the morning, paid for, and then travel around from island to island, making up stories to come up with more work, more inventions not truly required. And then you receive then an inspector over there. How many people have gone through the airports? Why you have so many people working at the same time for? You don't truly place the person in the corner and verify why are you being so abusive. You know this is criminal. Nobody's doing this. I kid you not. Sometimes at night, there were more people wearing blue than travelers. But the schedule was so inflexible that they had to stay there until the time ended, while there was not even people around. And besides those secret visits that they do behind closed gates, then you'll find directors coming from other places, secret people coming together for absolutely no reason. You know what they truly do when they go into these places? They laugh. They laugh around, they eat, and they play around with videos. So if you think you can respect these scoundrels, think twice. They don't give a damn. They are there to suck the money from the government and live their lives as kings. And they don't care. I was amazed. There were more bombs going through that airport than any place else. It was crazy. And some of the bad workers were then family members related with supervisors. You know, family members of the same work environment. Then they were protected. Sometimes piece of junk of workers. Junky workers. But because they were son or daughter of somebody up there, then they had some slack. So much slack that some days they would not even have to come to work. And nobody was monitoring. And more overtime. So if you are a person then with a straight mind thinking that we are going to get out of this crisis, you are crazy. We are not going to get out of this crisis. Because the leaders of our country, they have no courage of coming up with a list of the agencies must go. They don't have the courage. Imagine the amount of money wasted in these agencies. Imagine the number of workers not even required to take on a day because of the lack of work. And they get paid the last dime for their time, overtime, and special operations, special events. And the whole situation is paid for. Where are the inspectors to say in the face of the directors, why have you made this decision? They don't have the courage. Because the government became a club. You go over there, you put your hand in a basket of money, you put it in your pocket, and app with you and the whole country. That's the way they think. Club of friends. You come in, you steal as much as you want. You do a junk of a job, as much as junk you can ever do, and you get paid for it. And there is not an inspector coming around and coming up to their faces, why have you made this decision? They don't have the courage. Because the entire agencies, they don't care. Now, you want to be a straight-minded person? We've got to get rid of these agencies. There is enough knowledge in computers where they can receive only a protocol and then the work is nice and pristine. Because the civilian workers can do a much nicer, higher quality work than the government. But the government became this monstrosity of system, abusive, and they don't care, and then they only spend. And then you find time of disasters. Comes FEMA, very important, no question regarding it. But then you find the president going to the disaster area, then you find FEMA leaders going to the disaster area, then you find then TSA leader, DHS going to the site area, and then you find these people traveling around. Was it not enough for the president already going over there and take care of it? It has to be done this? No, they had to come with the other leaders of other agencies to verify for themselves. Can they watch television? Are they not able to come up with decisions via computer, watching a video, or they have to go over there and watch for themselves? What is the distinction? Simply another trip they can take in expenses of the government for a nice day. You want the truth yet? Was it not enough watching videos, live videos? You can even go to the regular meeting on YouTube. And you have the live videos of the situation. Oh, this has to be done, this has to be done, this has to be done. Why is it the people have to go over there in person to watch junk where they can watch via television? Are we truly want to get our government then straightened out and our country back in its place? Without privatization, forget it. It's not going to take place. You can pray to God, Satan, Pope, or any other God not even existent. It's not going to change. Certain areas of government, when crisis comes, privatize, get rid of the agencies. I don't care what it is. Only the Secret Service remains, and emergency people of certain areas remain, the rest has to go. Deal with it, provide a protocol, do a bid, get rid of them. That's what true leaders should do for the country. Until the status quo changes, then later decisions can be made, because priority is generating jobs. Now let me ask you this, with these bandits around in the government, do you think we are going to recuperate? We are not. There are a lot of big shots worth a ship's biscuit walking around as important people when they are not. Because they have no more shame on the face. I've watched myself. Hey, they don't care. They are bandits, criminals, and pirates licensed. You know, when these people, they come into this big, huge factory of money making, they grab as much as they want, they spend what they want, they make up their own hours, and they have no regard for the rest. And where is the leader in our country that can put a stop on this? Where are the inspectors come up to their face and say, why have you made this decision for? You won't find it. Because the whole government is a big club. And we have to privatize very fast, because it's coming a time when this term then ends, next 40 years, where our money is matching the maximum of its holding power. Then the market is going to crash. Read the reports from IMF. There is so much a nation can produce and produce and produce in terms of printing out money. It comes a point where it does no longer match, it's a piece of paper. Then inflation comes. Oh, but then the agencies, they're going to try to be self-righteous. Oh, because they have to be there, because this, that, and the other. There is enough computers, enough people with bright understanding that can do the work of 200 of these lazy scoundrels. What it lacks is a leader to say enough, get rid of these agencies, make sure the private company, they have what it takes to get a run, give them the protocol, and erase the number, erase the names, no more expenses with any of them. Became a private sector. They only send a piece of paper on a regular basis to inform the government what goes on. Do you want to make sure your country works? If you don't make these decisions, our country won't work anymore. They can say whatever crap they want. We understand we are spending more than we are producing. That's a problem. The government in itself became a criminal. Try to understand this point, because we have to have at least a maximum of 50 and 50. Before reaching 50 becomes abusive. Beyond 50 is criminal. But they have even changed their vocabulary in their dictionary. Above 50, those are licensed pirates. Because pirates, they take without regard.